Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video in Star Trek Online. Today I'm really excited to talk about the new Elachi Starship. And part of the reason is because a couple months ago I did a video talking about the different Starship classes and subclasses in the game. And throughout the video I talked about a couple of, things that were lacking in the game. Specifically, for instance, that Federation and KDF captains couldn't get a Juggernaut class Starship without, getting the Valor one, while the Scimitar existed for Romulan captains, which that no longer exists. But the other thing was that's being addressed today is that cruisers didn't have a Raider variant for their class. Escorts obviously have a ton of Raiders. Science vessels had that Lucari scout ship as well. And now in the cruiser class we're getting the Frigate subclass, which kind of already existed in the game, but not as a playable starship, essentially. So that's what this video is today. I'll talk about first off how the new event works, because it's a little bit different than other events inside of the game. And then I'll talk about the Starship comparisons of the ship itself, comparing it first to cruisers and then to escorts. And then I'll talk briefly about the trading console as well, because that's actually a bit more important for the PvP environment itself. And then I'll tell you DW at the end of the video. Feel free to see the time links in the description if you're interested in skipping around the video instead of hearing me ramble throughout this entire video. So first off, the event isn't just a do one thing and you're done. You have to do at least 2 things to get the full amount of progress tokens per day that's maximum to earn. You can get up to 60 tokens per day. The featured episode gives you 45 tokens. The TFO gives you 30 each time, and the different mycelial patrols give you 15 each. There is a new patrol system in which you'll be able to access it from basically the TFO menu. That'll be a different tab that you can scroll through the different patrols that exist in the game, or at least the ones that you don't have to go to a planet to get. It was talked about like a week or so ago. I will have a link to that in the description if you want to see more information about that new patrol system that they're adding to the game with this new update. Even though it's 1,200 tokens instead of 1,000, like most other events inside the game, you're able to get 60 tokens instead of 40, like every other event, like the summer event, winter event, anniversary event. It's always 40. This one it's 60. That makes it so that it only takes 20 days to earn the Starship, and that's partly because the event only lasts for 30 days instead of 40 to 45, which I think is what most of the other events are. So they're changing that, and additionally, they're adding a buyout option for this as well inside the C-Store that lasts forever. Now the buyout price starts at 6,000 Zen, and as you participate more in this event, the more tokens that you earn automatically decreases the Zen price of this Starship itself. So if you earn the full 1,200 tokens, the price goes down to 0 Zen, and you buy it from the C-Store, and it's unlocked for your entire account. If you don't participate in the event at all, even after the event ends, this will still be available in the C-Store, and you can pay that 6,000 Zen to get this Starship. There have been a lot of people complaining about that this is way too high of a price, at least in terms of stuff in the C-Store. When I talk about this, when I talk about the Star Trek Online economy in about 2 weeks or so, this price is actually not that unreasonable at all. In fact, it's actually really, really cheap versus other buyout options for other event starships in the game. But for those of you that are upset about that particular thing, just place a pause button on that and wait 2 weeks, and I will have a video talking about a lot of the economy stuff inside the game and how Zen, low-buy, entry credits, and all that kind of like intertwine with one another, and how a lot of that is revolved around the Starship economy inside of this game. Yeah, when it comes to this ship itself, this ship is extremely cool. It's the first engineering raider inside of the game. Every single other raider in the game have only had 7 weapons, because you essentially lost a weapon to get that raider flanking bonus on the ship. And as always, Commander Tactical, with the exception of the scout ship that had Commander Science. If it was a Commander Universal Starship, you lost an Ensign Universal slot to have that Commander Universal. We did have a couple of raiders that had a Commander Universal seat, But because it didn't have 5 engineering consoles, I didn't consider them engineering raiders, but some people could have definitely considered them engineering raiders if they wanted to make them that way. With this new Elachi Frigate as the first engineering raider inside the game, it has a full Fire 3 weapon layout. So it does have a full 8 weapons, which already gives it a bit of a leg up over other raiders, but obviously without a Commander, Science, or Commander Tactical, its DPS is going to be a little bit lower than a lot of other raiders inside the game. Its impulse rating is actually it's high for cruisers, but it's really low versus other raiders and escorts inside of the game, period. And it would have been nice if they made the impulse a bit higher, like 0.18 to like 0.2. But I mean, this is the first engineering raider that they've added to the game. I definitely understand that they probably don't want to make their first ship to add to the game super overpowered. Now, the trading console, you can just add to other ships, but I mean, the ship itself, I understand that they didn't want to make this super powerful. This does also have offensive cruiser commands, which if you do use the cruiser command strategic maneuvering to make yourself faster, that can help supplement the impulse speed a little bit. So it is a little bit faster, and you can get closer to that 0.20 impulse speed. That's probably what you would have to do if you want this to be fast in PvP. But this is a super exciting ship. Hopefully y'all are excited for this as well. Before I get into the real comparisons, I'll compare these to the other Elachi starships that are available inside the game, at least the tier 6 ones. The Elachi Starships Escort is the only non-cruiser of the Elachi ships in the game right now that is playable. The stats are a little bit similar to the Frigate, except it's much higher shields. It's got better impulse and inertia because it's an escort, and it's got 2 pilot seats in it, and an extra tactical console. Even though it only has 2 engineering consoles, it is a pretty durable escort considering everything. The Uranish Battle Cruiser, just like the Elachi Dreadnought Cruiser that I'll show in the next slide, there are better ships in the game for a lot of these ships, frankly. Unless you're going specifically for the looks of these starships, or simply wanting to get the Crescent Wave 3-piece, which is not very good, honestly, you probably don't even need to worry about these Elachi starships anymore. It's one of the sad things about a lot of the older starships. They're just not as competitive versus today's environment, especially when the bigger things going for a lot of these starships was that they had really high base stats, which since Victory's life, our new executive producer has started to make a lot of the newer ships that are easily accessible to players have really high base stats as well. Like the Fleet Cardenas, for instance, has base stats better than the Elachi Sheshar, essentially. So it is kind of sad that a lot of these ships are getting outdated. It also makes the really high shield ratio of a lot of the science vessels kind of like, well, why does a 1.45 shield ratio matter when a lot of the cruisers have over a 1.3 ratio? So just kind of one of those sad things out there now. So now we'll go ahead and go into Starship comparisons for cruisers. Before I get into the escort ones, and I'm starting off with the fastest cruisers in the game. One of them happens to be the Kelvin Timelight Untitled Dreadnought Cruiser, also known as the Vengeance class inside of the game. But if you're looking at if you're going for this ship on the exchange, this is the title that you would be going for. And it has a 0.18 impulse, which is faster than this ship. Just like the Discovery Enterprise and Discovery D7 also are faster than this ship. And this high impulse speed combined with really high base stats is part of why this ship has been a staple in the DPS scene for basically since it came out. Now, yes, the Scimitars have always beaten out this ship, and obviously the Bob War Juggernauts are obviously the best DPS ships for PvE, but this ship has always held its own for a very long time inside the game. So I have no complaints about the ship besides its really large ship profile, which I've talked about in a different video, but yes, you can work around it. And also the Discovery Enterprise, it has a much smaller ship profile, which is really nice. It's just that, anyway, I'm not gonna get into that. This is a decent ship overall, especially when they added the ability to use dual cannons and dual heavy cannons on these ships, on all the flight deck carriers inside of the game. that was really, really nice as a quality of life improvement to the game itself. Now, if you don't care about those ships, the Subon Silic is a really nice staple that everyone can access now. Thanks to that recent Romulan update, that besides of a couple of very specific ships, most Romulan vessels can be accessible by all captains now. This is one of the best flight deck carriers in the game, period. You get a Romulan battle cloak, you have a regular warp core, you have cruiser commands, you have 2 hangar bays, and now you can use dual cannons on this ship. I think the only reason why people won't use the ship as much is because, I mean, the scimitars are a lot cooler and they have a really, really strong 3-piece set that's really awesome. Speaking of which, I hope the Krenim ship gets added to the C-store at some point. But I'm also mentioning the Undine Battlecruiser. It's also tied with our previous 2 ships in terms of its impulse speed. But this is also here because with the loss of the Tier 5 Voth Bastion from the exchange, because now that's like never going to be in the budget category anymore, the new budget cruiser, by the way, for tanking inside the game is the Undine Battlecruiser. This was always a bit more expensive. That's why I didn't go for this thing. For y'all first suggestions. This thing, at least on PC, always typically hovered around 10 to 12 million energy credits versus the Voth was always around, 2 to 5. Much, much cheaper there. Not anymore, but this ship is still nice. It's got full cruiser commands. It's got a slightly higher hull regeneration than what you would expect. It's just a nice extra passive thing on it. For the bridge officer seating, you make the Lieutenant Commander Universal a tactical, and then you have enough to be able to do both beams and torpedoes. So you can use the full Polaron 3-piece from the home mission if you wanted to use that from my video. And it's also got a nice impulse and turn rate as well. It's a 4-4 cruiser, but for a Tier 5 starship that's generally relatively cheap on the exchange, it's a really solid ship. We don't really have Tier 6 Undine ships in the game yet. When they do that, this ship will no longer be budget anymore, which would be sad, but, Cryptic is starting to do that to all of the ships inside of the game. So, it will happen eventually. Some other really good ones that are fast. The Advanced Light Cruisers. This was a 3-pack. There's also a Klingon one as well that loses command track fire for some of the better stuff here. But when it came to the Advanced Light Cruisers, in my opinion, I think these were meant to be basically the PvP cruisers inside the game. And in my opinion, it wasn't good enough. I mean, sure, the impulse and inertia is fine, but yeah, the one thing that kind of like failed a lot of these was that the impulse rating wasn't high enough. That's just what it came down to, and our new Elachi Frigate is in the same line that its impulse rating is low versus other PvP starships inside the game. Hopefully they add a new frigate eventually that has a higher impulse rating, or they change this impulse rating to be higher, but that's why you didn't really see these much in PvP. Also, there's other stronger PvP starships anyway. So, I'm also mentioning, just really quickly, the Cardassian Keldon and Fleet Kib. They also have a high impulse rating and decent turning as well. They don't have as much offensive power as many of the other starships, so you don't see them as much. However, for those of you that are curious, the Fleet Kib in many ways is pretty comparable to the Vengeance class, honestly. Plus, it's got a battle cloak. So, downside is that it doesn't have a hangar bay, it doesn't have command track fire. That's the thing that this thing's lacking versus the Vengeance. But it's got a battle cloak instead for its trouble. And of course, lastly, for the cruisers, I have to, of course, include the TOS Enterprise and D7, because before the Elachi Frigate, these were the ships with the best turn rate of any cruiser inside of the game. The Elachi Frigate now has the best turn rate, but right behind them are these ships. So, and because of a commander and 3 lieutenant commander seats, these are still very strong ships inside of the game. But that's just my opinion anyway. Now, we will get into the escort comparisons. Most of these ships are going to be ones that you saw in the Summer Rising Starship Comparisons videos, so If you saw that video already, you're probably going to see basically the same stuff here too, and it's not going to be much of a surprise. First off, I have to mention the Fleet Rising Pilot Corvette. It's got basically the same stats, but because it's got a defensive speed bonus, plus it's the fastest ship in the game, this is a very tanky starship. It's a very, very, very tanky. I mean, the advantage that the Elachi Frigate has is that you could do reverse shield polarity 3 on this ship, while you can only get reverse shield polarity 2 on this one at maximum. But other than that, a lot of its offensive power and things are pretty similar to between these ships as well. The Gemini Striker Recon ship are pretty nice staples inside the PvP scene. Despite the fact that it doesn't have a Commander Special seat, they're still pretty strong as well, and decently fast too. As you can see here, with a lot of these ships, the Elachi Frigate is really slow in comparison to these ships. It's still okay, but it can't compete in speed to any of these other ships out there. And a lot of these ships are still pretty decent. These ones are from the C store. And this is another one from the C store, and this one's from the fleet. Decent ships overall. Stats are pretty comparable. This is a Raider, so its stats should be a bit lower than a lot of the escorts out there, just the way it is, and it's totally fine. Depending upon how this thing performs and how much this ship feels, I might actually trade out the Cardassian Intel Escort that I use on one of my captains for tanking and replace it with the Elachi Frigate. For those of you that don't know, I have 22 different characters that I use for tanking inside of the game, and I have them use 22 different starships. And because I basically ran out of cruisers to use that were fun, I have a couple of them that use stuff other than cruisers and science vessels. And I had the Cardassian Escort as one of them, but with a Commander Engineering, I'm going to see the feel once I earn this thing to see if this thing feels better. If it feels better, I might switch over to this thing off of the Cardassian Escort, but we will just see. Other Escort favorites is obviously the Fleet Defiant, as well as the NX Escort refit. In my opinion, there are better ones out there, but these are ones that you'll see a lot because, I mean, they're nice looking starships in general, and the Defiant has a ton of ship customization stuff on the outside. There's so many different variants of the Defiant in the C store that you can buy to add extra things to this thing. That a lot of people like this ship because of that. Many people buy the NX for the DPS scene just because of point defense, bombardment, warhead. If you're doing a phaser, disruptor, or plasma build. In terms of raiders, the Ouroboros is one of the staple ones in the PvP scene. It's a pretty fast ship with a battle cloak that everyone can access. Because it has a Commander Universal seat, it does lose the Ensign's Bridge Officer seat, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. That Cryptic has been very consistent about that. If you have a Commander's specific seat, then you have your full Bridge Officer seat. Yeah, there are those things there. Of course, if you want to just go with fleet stuff instead, the fleet's raiders are still fairly strong. However, you do lose because this ship has an extra weapon over every other raider in the game. You are going to feel that a little bit versus these ships, but these ships are still fairly cheap off of your fleet too. So it's totally up to you as to whether a commander pilot seat is worth it, or whether you would rather have a little bit more durability with a reverse ship polarity 3 Bridge Officer seat. And of course, we have some more stuff off of the exchange. The Monkey Raider is still decently strong because, I mean, you've got an extra console there. The Miradorn has Commander Pilot, so that's obviously nice as well. And of course, lastly, we have some more Battle Cloaking Raiders. The Fleet Burrell, the thing that keeps it prevalent in the current scene is that it gets an enhanced Battle Cloak, which can situationally be more advantageous. The Klingon Empire exclusively has the D4X Pilot Bird of Prey, which is really nice. I mean, a 5-1-1 with a really fast stuff. The Elachi Frigate also has a 5 weapons in the front for Raider too. So, but it's really slow versus the Kevlin Timeline version. When it comes to traits and consoles, I kind of flew through that really quickly just because the Starship Trading Console stuff here is a bit more important to talk about. The Starship Trade is called Invasive Maneuvers, and I think this is really overpowered. So whenever you use evasive maneuvers, which when you combine this with emergency powered engines that everyone has, combined with a duty officer that makes these go off cooldown really quickly, whenever you use evasive maneuvers, which you'll be able to have a bunch, it gives a disable plus a short-term cloak. It's not called that. You go into the mycelial stuff forbidden to come back out. There is no way that I don't see this in a lot of PvP builds. If this stacks and actually applies a lot of cloaking effects from a lot of like your infiltrator and subterfuge on bridge officers, this is going to be insanely strong for Romulan captains. If not, it's still going to be a decent stuff because an extra disable in PvP is nice. Being able to have an untargetable short-term cloak is also nice as well. Or maybe it's not untargetable, but you at least get a cloak-ish type of effect as well. This is, especially if you're a PvP player or are considering PvP, getting this ship alone for this trait, especially since it's an account unlocked trait, is going to be very much worthwhile for you. Additionally, its console is called the Elachi Rift Jump. It gives accuracy and damage resistance rating to energy. It's active, gives you a bit of speed. It makes you untargetable for a couple of seconds, and when you exit the untargetable state from the mycelial network, you get a bit of damage. It should be decent in PvP. I see this much more as an account unlocked version that's slightly weaker of a personal wormhole generator. That you're getting some accuracy instead of defense. You're getting some damage resistance rating against energy instead of energy directed energy damage, and you're going untargetable with some extra speed. It's not healing you. That the personal generator would do, that this thing is not going to be doing for you. This thing of death will always be better than this thing. I don't see a way that this thing would be worse than this one, but it's an account unlocked console whenever you get this ship. So generally, in my opinion, when it comes to Star Trek Online, if it's from something that is character specific, that you buy the ship or buy something and it's only for one character, I think it should be stronger than stuff that is you buy it once and it's available to your entire account. For balancing standards, I think that's totally fine. And so something essentially from the C store that might be a little more costly depending upon whether you participate in the event or not, that is basically this console, but every single one of your characters can access it. I think it is a perfectly reasonable compromise there. Okay, so for the TLDW of this video, our Autumn event is starting on September 10th, and it goes for 30 days. This is just for PC. Xbox and PlayStation will start this event later. And this is always because for a lot of these newer events, there's always going to be bugs, and to get bugs fixed on Xbox and PlayStation takes a lot longer to get patches out. Rather on PC, they can patch it within 24 hours and get a new patch out really quick if something breaks. Xbox and PlayStation, they can't do it as quickly. So basically, they're using PC as basically a beta for a lot of your Xbox and PlayStation players. But yeah, along with the event, you're able to earn progress tokens towards a new Starship. From playing the episode, the TFO, and patrols, you can get a certain amount of progress tokens. You only get a maximum of 60 for every 24 hours. That 24-hour timer starts once you earn your first bit of progress tokens. At that point, the 24-hour timer starts. So if you say you played an episode, played the episode Beneath the Skin for 45 progress tokens, and then 19 hours later you played a patrol, you only have to wait, maybe 30 to 45 minutes before that 20-hour timer finishes, and then you can play and earn even more tokens. It's totally up to you on that, as to how you want to do this. What earning the tokens does is it reduces the price on the Elachi Frigate from the C store. It starts at 6,000 Zen, and it goes down to 0 if you earn the full 1200. If you don't earn the full 1200, then it will have an amount of Zen equivalent to the amount of power tokens that you didn't earn during the 30-day event. As for the ship itself, it is the first engineering raider inside of the game, which is really exciting. Because its impulse rating is not, in my opinion, is not high enough. I don't think it will be competitive in PvP. And so I don't think it's going to be meta. But the trait and console should be meta. The trait makes it so your evasive maneuvers gives a disable to enemies, and it gives you a short-term cloak essentially, which is, I think, is going to be PvP warping. The console is basically just a cheaper account unlocked version of the personal wormhole generator, which I think for a lot of your budget PvP builds should be included in a lot of them as well. Again, for a lot of this stuff in terms of PvP and how the PvP meta is going to be affected by this, please consult the PvP experts on S tier Reddit and on various other PvP channels on Discord and such for how they feel this is going to be impacting their own specific meta. It's a very small community, but they are very vocal and talk with each other a lot on this, so feel free to talk with them with all that stuff. If you need links to a couple of them, I'm happy to provide links for them in terms of some of those other things out there inside of the game. Anyway, that's basically it for this video. Feel free to like and subscribe if you like this type of content. Next week, I'll be talking about some Sompek ground builds. Because now that the PC event for the 7-day Sompek stuff is over, it's a lot easier to talk about Sompek stuff again. And then the week after that, I'll be talking about a bit about the STO economy, as well as some things that I said I will be covering in the near future that I haven't yet. So yeah, feel free to like and subscribe if you like that type of stuff. Feel free to talk in the comments below and discuss about maybe what do you like or dislike about this, and about the 6,000 Zen pricing for the Elachi Frigate. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next week.